Welcome everyone to the 2025-2026 Radau College Lessons in Leadership. We are really excited to kick off this year. I'm just absolutely thrilled to welcome Joyette Holmes today to be our first for this year. She's chair of the State Board of Pardons and Paroles. She's a trailblazer in the state of Georgia, the very first African American and woman to serve as a Chief Magistrate Judge and District Attorney in Cobb County, Georgia. Please provide a warm welcome to Joyette for this great conversation.
Thank you.
We always start and end with the same questions. So we will begin with you just telling us a little bit about your leadership journey, how you got to where you are today, and also highlighting the folks that helped you along the way.
Thank you. So in highlighting, I'll start with that because there are a couple people in the room that I think helped my leadership journey. My husband being one, Bridges Holmes, and Judge Chesbrough. I came into the magistrate court and Judge had been there for a good time. And you learn from the people that are around you. My dream was to be a lawyer. My dream was to be a judge. But quite frankly, I didn't know how to get there. I had never thought about the fact that maybe you'd have to run to be elected. And when I did it the first time, it was clear that I didn't know what it meant to run to be elected, or the possibility that other people would see in me that leadership capability, which came from the judges of the Cobb Superior Court appointing me to be Chief Magistrate Judge, and then the governor appointing me to be District Attorney and now member of the Board of Pardons and Paroles.
That's wonderful. So usually I do have some questions and the participants have seen them ahead of time, but there's a faculty member who's welcomed his class and they're online today. So I've actually worked in their questions because these are just some amazing young people. This is from Campbell and Abil, who are in the class, and their question for you is, as a young adult, did you have a clear sense that this was going to be the path that you would follow, and how did you explore that over time and decide on it?
As a young adult, yes, I did know that I wanted to be a lawyer and kind of followed that journey through. At University of Georgia, which is where I got my undergrad degree from, I was a psychology major. And as I was going through the curriculum for that major, I needed another elective towards the end of my schooling. And I ended up in the criminal justice department. And as I was looking at what was required to get an elective, I realized that all I needed was that elective and an internship to double major in criminal justice. So when I did that internship ended up bringing me here to Cobb County. I moved to Cobb the last semester of my senior year and interned at the Cobb County Juvenile Court. And so I had the opportunity to be in court, to see the lawyers in action, to see the judges in action, and actually get out into the community and visit schools because I was on a truancy detail for the Cobb County Juvenile Court at that time. So that solidified for me that I wanted to be in the courtroom.
Did you deep down know you were prepared, or were you looking for some toolkits or skill sets? How do you feel you navigated into that?
I don't know that I thought I was prepared. I knew that my journey in the courtroom prepared me for the role, but the role was bigger than what I was looking at. I had applied to be a juvenile court judge, which is, a place I had spent some time from, interning at the University of Georgia to clerking in law school. And so that journey as a juvenile court judge was very different than the journey in the magistrate court. Most judgeships only have a handful of staff that work with you. The magistrate court at that time had about 70 team members, including 16 judges and then support staff. So that's what I didn't know if I was ready for. Developing a team, leading a team, working with a team. But I had a great support team around me. people who are willing to show me the way and teach me. As long as you are willing and open to learning what that space is going to bring and you listen to those around you, then I think the preparedness comes.
So what were some of the characteristics of those other leaders that you saw that you wanted to either emulate or model after?
They listened. I think when you listen, you know the output, you know what you need to say, what you need to do, how you need to show up. Integrity, of course, you want to be able to trust the people around you. You know, sometimes, unfortunately, there are people around you that you can't trust. And that doesn't mean that you don't work with them, but you have to understand what that looks like for you. What I watch for often is how they treat the people around them. You know, where we work, there are always going to be people in different positions. So whether it's the person that is, you know, giving the money to the university or the person that's cleaning the office after hours, I watch to see how they treat those people because it makes a difference in how they are going to represent the organization that you're a part of.
So tell me a little bit more then about some specific mentorship. Was it something that you really sought out? Did it happen because the mentor sought you out? And then maybe about your own mentorship style.
One of my mentors that I used to call a mentor from a distance, but you know, we have had the opportunity to sit more and talk, is retired Chief Justice Benham of the Georgia Supreme Court. I met him because he came to a Bar Association meeting that we had, and he talked about how he was able to gain respect and build genuine relationships within the legal profession. As a Black lawyer starting in the early 60s, I think, practicing law, he was the only attorney of color that was practicing in Bartow County and Cobb County. And so, you know, it was trying as he navigated through that, but once he started seeing and understanding what things were important to the people around him outside of the practice of law, he joined in that. So woodworking for one of the attorneys that he respected, gardening. And so he would go to the farms in his area and do gardening, and he would be around the people who were otherwise in the courtroom. And so that's how they built connection and relationship. And so then the respect was automatic when it came to the courtroom. And that resonated with me.
So this is another question that comes from the students, Carissa, Julian, and Anna from the class. They're interested in knowing how have the transitions in your career influenced your personal life more broadly, and how have those transitions served as either turning points, both positive or negative?
So first, I would say that those transitions never happened without the blessing and often push of my husband and my family. But the transitions were, they were all pretty big. As you know, I went from leaving the solicitor's office to opening my own practice. You know, when you do that, you don't know what that's going to look like. I didn't have a foundation of financial comfort going into that space. It was, we talked about it. We said, well, let's go buy you a computer so that, you know, you can start this practice. And we did it, and it was successful for what I needed it to be. Our girls were really little at the time, so I wanted to still be able to make the gingerbread houses at the school, but also have a practice that was going to support our family. We were able to do that. Left that to go into the district attorney's office as an assistant DA, and that was, you know, by the time I had built my private practice, going back into public service, you know, economically, it was it was different. Most impactfully, leaving the magistrate court to go into the DA's office. I think that was one of the hardest transitions, because at that point I had been there about 5 years or just over 5 years. That was probably my most rewarding period of time, not just because of the role being on the bench as a judge, but the ability to touch so many things and so many people. And so leaving that for the district attorney's office was really, really tough, but I had a great support system.
So you did mention your daughters, and you mentioned building those gingerbread houses. So 2 parts to this. One is how you navigate the work-life balance, if there even is such a thing. But then also, tell me a little bit about what it means to be such a role model to those daughters of yours.
There's no balance, for sure. We talk all the time about giving ourselves grace because we are still learning how to parent and parent in a different way. They are 20 and 22 now and have different challenges. And so I think we face those challenges. We have faced those challenges in very different ways. I tried to have great balance early on in my career. As I said, private practice was very meaningful, not just because of the work, but because I did have that time to go back and forth. That time did get away from me a bit, particularly when I was in the district attorney's office. And so, you navigate that challenge, what it looks like, try to make sure that there are opportunities for the connection.
This is another question from the students, and obviously they're psychology students. This is from Isaac. He's really interested to know whether you believe that leadership and the skill sets around leadership are much more innate, and then you can pull and draw on them, or whether it really was for you a learned process.
I say both. I definitely believe that there are innate skills that you have that cause you to be a leader. Whether you're a good leader, I think, is what you pull from, what you see, what you learn, and you have to continue to learn in that. So yes, I do believe that you have innate skills to be leaders, but to be a good leader, you really do have to look, listen, and be active in the things around you.
Some people, will sometimes reflect on the past, and I'm one that doesn't want to say, okay, I would go back and change something. But if you could send this person back and talk to your 25-year-old self or your, 21-year-old self, what might you whisper in her ear?
Maybe that you are enough. I think I have struggled with feeling that I was enough, whether it was good enough, sure enough, enough of a leader, whatever. I think I would tell myself that I was enough. I think having that confidence and maybe tapping down what that imposter syndrome looks like a bit, that maybe there would have been some things that I did differently that would have supported other people in a better way, just because I felt better about who I am. I still have to speak to myself to say, don't beat yourself up so much. So I'm continually on that journey of, you are enough. And like I said, you can put whatever word in front of enough. But that's what I would tell myself.
You obviously have a very stressful job, and you have over years. Tell us a little bit about how you start your day, end your day, to ensure that you're managing as best you can the various stressors.
What I need to do is set time, first part of the day and end of the day, just for me to either reflect or to prepare. I think, sometimes, and I don't even want to use the word leader, but sometimes when you are in spaces where a lot is required of you, you wake up and you just get to the day because everybody expects you there, whether it's, physically, emotionally, however. And I do tend to lean into others' expectations sometimes than taking care of me. So the question is great because it puts in my face what I need to be doing.
But it sounds like some of those things, even though they're taking up time, they are refueling your spirit, and they're doing the same thing. It just might look different than someone else.
It allows me to pour into what was poured into me, and I think what has made a difference for me professionally and personally. So absolutely, there is, I do get a lot out of it. So it's not as if it's just being done for other people, but I think I do try to show up, not for myself, but for others. And I just have to learn how to be a little bit selfish.
We will encourage you to, as an audience.
Thank you.
So this is from another set of students, Blessing and Tyson, from psychology class. And they're really interested, as much as you want to share, about an adversity you've experienced in your career, and then the ways in which resilience shone through.
You know, I was one of few attorneys of color practicing in Cobb, particularly in the state court when I was in the solicitor's office. And oftentimes I would be mistaken for the mother of the defendant or the probation officer, maybe. The first thought was never that I was an attorney in the courtroom. Attorneys that would come in who practice primarily in other areas of the metro would ask me, why do you stay here? Why do you choose to practice? Well, first of all, I want people to see who they can be and what they can do wherever they are planted. That you don't have to go to a space that is automatically comfortable for you. And I talked about Chief Justice Benham, who was my mentor at a distance, who kind of became more of a mentor. When I was asked about applying to be the district attorney, I had said no several times because I told you how I felt about the magistrate court. But when I made the decision to go, I called him and I said, I really need you. Can I come see you? And I said, I don't know if I want to do this because I don't want to feel like I'm being selected because I am a female and I am African American, and there has never been. And he said, so what? He said, drop the humble and tell me what your career journey has been, what you've done. And so I said, I was a clerk to a judge, I was a public defender, I worked as an assistant solicitor in the solicitor's office. I had my own law practice where I represented clients. I was an assistant DA in the district attorney's office. I was an adjunct professor at Kennesaw State University. I became the DA, became the Chief Magistrate Judge leading up to that. And he said, so that sounds to me like you have the experience. It sounds to me like you are qualified. So what if you are selected because they feel like it's time? Because you have something to give to this space, and hopefully will be a motivation for others who want to do the same things but don't see themselves there.
Wow, thank you so much for that reflection. That is just, thank you. It just really means a lot. I would like to turn just slightly before our last question is, tell me, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges right now for yourself, for those in various areas of the legal and justice system and public service?
There is still not a recognition that there are some systems that don't create a space for fair and equitable justice. And so I think that is hard for lawyers who are coming into the space without being able to see what that might look like. It's hard to get the community to see sometimes that public safety is a community issue and all the solutions are around us. It's not just the court system, it's not just the law enforcement community. Because what public safety looks like is people having the opportunity to thrive where they are. And we have the tendency to just see people who are justice involved as bad people. And it's, it's our neighbor, it's our daughters, it's, our fellow coworkers who, have mental health issues, substance use disorders, maybe environmental challenges where they've just not seen anything different. But if we don't recognize that reentry is as important as accountability, then we're going to continue to be in this cycle.
So we always end all these discussions before we turn it over to the audiences. What has been the most valuable lesson that you have learned?
To believe in myself and to allow others to talk out loud. I think the best resolutions for me in all the steps I've taken is to talk out loud. That's allowed me to speak my fear, speak what I don't know, and then you have a community around you. So that's probably the biggest lesson that I've had, not to be in my head about all the things, because true leadership is listening and being active and pulling up those around you.
Well, I want to open it up to our audience, and then as well if the students have other questions or others online have questions.
I had one case where everything relied on the fingerprints. And so I had to become an expert on fingerprints. So I did an understudy with an officer over at Marietta PD to figure that stuff out. It's really, I think you learn different skills as you go, no matter what profession that you're in. So I can't say that there's one in particular. There are just a lot that have come up that have benefited me in future roles that I would not have expected. Absolutely, and if I can tell a brief story that I think pinpoints that, I talked about interning with the Cobb County Juvenile Court. In going to the different schools, one of the schools I went to was Central Alternative School, which used to be the Cobb County Alternative School. When I graduated from undergrad, I graduated in December, went to law school in August. So I worked at that school for the remainder of that school year. And I was in a class, and at the end of the day, one of the young students, and the students were primarily black and brown students, we were just talking. One of the young ladies says to me, my mom bakes and sells cookies out of our apartment. And I was like, cool, so tomorrow, oatmeal raisin, chocolate chip, whatever, bring the cookies to class. All the students looked at me like I had two heads. And of course, I'm thinking, you just said cookies, so I'm just trying to tell you what kind I would love to see tomorrow. And the student finally said, and I'm like 21 years old at this point, the student finally said, she's talking about crack cocaine. Because they are baked in it's like in a cookie form, and then it's, chopped up, put in little baggies to be distributed. I had no clue. I had never seen crack at that point. I didn't know how it was distributed. I didn't know any of that. And so I'm surprised that as 16, 17-year-olds, that they have seen it and that they're so comfortably talking about it in a public space. And they are looking at me like, you look like us. So why have you not? Why is this a surprise to you? And so in that moment, I recognized that my perspective has to be broader than what I had experienced myself. From that moment, I have been able to recognize that situations are different because of environmental differences, family, just the circumstances of my upbringing and other people's upbringings are different, whether we look the same on the surface or not. And so I have carried that with me in each role, in all that I do, not just professionally, because it does help me to understand how I can better lead if I understand that people are different everywhere you find them. How do I deal with bad actors and people who aren't really trustworthy? I mean, it depends on where I find them. Certainly if I'm in a position of authority and it's somebody who is working on a team that I'm on, and I always use that, like I hate to say people work for me, because I feel like we're all working together no matter the role. But sometimes people have to go. Because the culture of the organization you're with has to be built on trust and doing the right thing. And so if it's that type of situation, then they might have to go. If it's a situation, let's say I'm working in a community organization or something like that, sometimes it's just understanding what situations to deal with them on. So I think you just have to know what you are dealing with, learn how to operate in the spaces. With them, you kind of hope that the way that you walk will reflect a change for that person, but it doesn't always. I chose litigation in the public sector, and you don't make a lot of money in that space as a lawyer. And loans are a real thing. I mean, if you can't otherwise pay for it, and I'm speaking from my own experience. And so you have to, I could have made a decision to go into a corporate space because of the loans and not enjoyed what I did. We had to figure it out to make it work because I truly enjoyed it and loved it. So it wasn't a chore going to represent bad actors, people whose choices, led them to where they ultimately ended up being. Not everybody is built or wants to litigate, but I think you still get the nature of legal process by going into a courtroom. There are a lot of transactional lawyers who, love having interns to help seek out internships through local law firms, or they can just reach out to the Cobb County Bar Association or, the Georgia State Bar to find opportunities to shadow lawyers. If nothing else, you figure out what you don't want to do or, the type of lawyer you don't want to be by observing different people. And to your point, even in this academic space, there are a lot of lawyers who serve as adjunct professors. And so, look out for, they can check different course offerings and see who's teaching and try to get some time just to speak to them to see what that would look like.
Well, super. I do want to thank you. I also want to acknowledge that she is involved seriously in the Black and Gold today, and I appreciate her commitment to Kennesaw State University.
Absolutely.
This has just been a wonderful conversation. Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you again for having me. This has been great.